Good evening, welcome to the news at 19 hours. The top stories tonight. Vice President Nongawina has distanced President Ted Kalungu and the Patriotic Front from the proposal to increase the tenure of office for elected officials. The Small-Scale Farmers Development Agency says the country's agriculture sector is under threat. In international news, Syrian rebels have announced a big offensive aimed at breaking the government siege of rebel-held East Aleppo. With the details, my name is Dingindaba Jonah Bioya. Vice President Nongawina says it is not President Ted Kalungu's position to extend his current 5-year term of office by an additional 2 years. Ms. Wina told Parliament during the Vice President's question time that it is also not the position of the Patriotic Front Central Committee to extend President Lungu's term of office to 7 years. She says it is in fact the first time that government is hearing of such a proposal. Ms. Wina states that when the Patriotic Front Central Committee member Paul Monga held a briefing to propose the extension of the term of office for elected officials to 7 years, he spoke on his own behalf. She has told the House that this means that it is only Mr. Monga who holds this position in the ruling party. Ms. Wina, however, states that like any other Zambian, Mr. Monga has the right to his own opinion. She was responding to a question by Monze Central Member of Parliament Jack Mwimbu, who wanted to find out whether the Patriotic Front supports the proposal by Mr. Monga. The Young African Leaders Initiative, YALI, says Zambians must not allow the proposal by Patriotic Front member of the Central Committee, Paul Monga, to increase the tenure of office for elected officials, including the president, to 7 years. YALI governance advisor Isaac Mwanza says what should be advocated for is a reduction from the current 5 to 4 years. Mr. Mwanza has reminded the Patriotic Front that the downfall of the MMD began 10 years after being in power, when the third-term debate for the late President Frederick Chiluba started. He notes that it appears the latest call to increase the tenure for elected officials is another such call, urging sober Patriotic Front members and think tanks to reject such a call. Mr. Mwanza has accused Mr. Monga of trying to take the nation back to the time of the failed third-term bid, which made the MMD unpopular and marked the beginning of its downfall. And analyst McDonald Jupenzi says Mr. Monga cannot, in his right thinking, propose an extension of the tenure of office for elected leaders. He says Mr. Monga was in the MMD and misled former President Frederick Chiluba to go for a third term and now wants to mislead President Ted Kalungu. Mr. Jupenzi says President Lungu should not listen to Mr. Monga, stating that what he is calling for is a misplaced and misguided statement. He says any attempt to tamper with the tenure of office for elected leaders should be done to reduce the term to 4 years and not extending it. Today marks 2 years since the death of Zambia's fifth Republican President Michael Sata, who died in London Hospital on the 28th of October back in 2014. Zambians from different walks of life today remembered the late president by visiting his grave at Embassy Park. Albert Mpezeni has the details in the following report. The report will be coming on later on as we continue with the news. Meanwhile, Patriotic Front Secretary General Davis Mwila this morning laid Patriotic Front members in laying wreaths on late President Michael Sata's grave. Speaking after laying wreaths on the PF founding president's grave, Mr. Mwila says the Patriotic Front is where it is today because of President Sata. He says the party remembers President Sata as a hard-working man who fought hard for the party to be where it is today. Mr. Mwila says President Sata initiated many programs such as increasing the minimum wage, improving the working conditions of civil servants, and among others. The Human Rights Commission has welcomed the government's intention to call for another national referendum on the proposed Bill of Rights. In a statement, Commission Chief Information and Training Officer Mwelna Mulea says the pronouncement by the Justice Minister that the government will widely consult the proposed Bill of Rights to the eligible voters through a national referendum is the right way to go if the process is to succeed. Mr. Mulea says it is the considered view of the Human Rights Commission that the proposed Bill of Rights is largely progressive and areas of contention can easily be addressed so that there is consensus on what needs to be entrenched under the Bill of Rights. He says the Commission believes that valuable lessons can be learned from the failed referendum, and fundamental among such lessons is their unacceptable and inescapable need for political consensus on paramount national issues such as the contents of the Bill of Rights. Mr. Mleya adds that there is need for a spirit of give and take in such governance issues, as failure to do so may result in losing everything, as the case was during the 11th August referendum in the proposed Bill of Rights and amendment to Article 79 of the Zambian Constitution. He states that it is totally unjustifiable that more than 25 years after being a pioneer of multi-party democracy in the Southern African region, Zambia should continue maintaining a Bill of Rights, which, for instance, is inherently discriminatory against women. The opposition United Progressive Party UPP has charged that the coming of the International Monetary Fund IMF to Zambia in its admission by the Patriotic Front government that they have destroyed the country's economy. UPP President Dr. Sylvia Chimba says it is unthinkable for the Patriotic Front government to take the nation back to the IMF, even when they know the impact of the Brentwood institution leaves on countries they engage in economic recovery. He says it's a matter of morality. The Patriotic Front government should resign for failing the people of Zambia and leading them to what he has termed as days of torment. Dr. Chimba says Zambians must prepare themselves for severe harsh times, with electricity tariffs expected to be hiked. He says the IMF has no interest in the affairs of the people, but it is merely interested in Zambia's resources. The Small-Scale Farmers Development Agency, SAFADA, says the agriculture sector in the country is under threat. Speaking during a media briefing in Lusaka this morning, SAFADA Director Boyd Morwe says agriculture is likely to come to a standstill unless government comes up with the proper measures to facilitate individual investment or family farm advancement in the sector. Mr. Morwe says if the country is going to depend on foreign investment and ignore the local investor, Zambia will face a critical food and economic deficit when foreign investors decide to go. He says poverty levels will also continue to be very high and unbearable. Mr. Morwe says it is important that the agriculture sector is given the attention it deserves if the country is to be food secure as well as grow economically. The National Road Fund Agency, NRFA, says the road maintenance needs on the ground surpasses what is being collected from the toll gate so far. NRFA Public Relations Officer Alphonsius Hamajila says the country has a backlog of needs for road maintenance. He says NFRA implementing agencies such as the Road Development Agency are implementing a lot of new projects which will need maintenance once completed, and therefore motorists should understand the idea of the toll gates. Mr. Hamajila explains that motorists should not view paying toll fees as a burden, as they are merely paying for the maintenance of the roads they are using. He adds that very soon people will begin to see the fruits of coming from the toll gates. The Zambia National Information and Communications Technology Authority, ZICTA, says it will not extend the deadline for SIM verification and registration once it expires on the 31st of October 2016. ZICTA Director General Margaret Mudenda has since encouraged the public to register and verify their SIM cards before the deadline. She says those who will not register their SIM cards will be disconnected. Mrs. Mudenda says the verification of the SIM cards is proceeding smoothly ahead of the deadline.
In the developing countries, the absence of initial address or detail collection is the reason why we had to do SIM card registration. And we're not the only ones. It's an ITU approved and recommended exercise which is necessary for us to be able to make progress. Now, you are asking, are we going to extend? We would very much like not to extend, because we have to come to a point where people comply. As we speak, in the period of extensions we've had heightened crimes, not because of lack of SIM registration, but crimes that would have been otherwise averted had we actually known the perpetrator and the registered person owning the SIM card. So this is something, working with the police, that we know from our Home Affairs perspective, we need to secure the interest of the Zambian people. It's really not intended to derail or frustrate anyone. It's intended to help. There are specific cases where individuals have registered once, there was a problem with the data collection, they've had to do it twice and 3 times. Those are isolated, those are being treated differently. But then there are cases where people have just not bothered. They have a phone and they've just not bothered to register. Those have to be dealt with. And I have.
The government is targeting to have 200,000 HIV-negative men and children circumcised countrywide during the October-December 2016 campaign of the male circumcision exercise. We'll take a break, and then after which we'll have the details to that story.
Hello, you're watching Cube Business. This time around, we are at Okadeco Office Furniture Store, Oka Trends. Here, you can get the very best of office furniture at very affordable prices. Now, these tables are executive, and I know that's definitely what's best for your office. Now, if you're looking to get yourself into the executive mood anywhere in your house, and I mean anywhere, Okadeco is definitely the place to be for you. You can get to Okadeco and get the very best of climbing material. If you're looking to get yourself a pedestal pan or maybe a tumbler holder, a paper holder, this is definitely the place to be. After a busy day at work, now the best thing that you can get home to is a luxurious bed. And this you can get at Okadeco. You can get all this at very affordable prices, and you will definitely enjoy your rest and be ready for the next day. Ladies love matching things, from matching clothes to matching curtains, but at Okadeco you can get matching curtains regardless of what color your home is, because there's a wide variety of curtains regardless of what color your home is. You can get any type of curtain at Okadeco.
Okadeco, along Kafue Road. There are moments in our lives that live forever. Moments like witnessing the thunderous call of a natural wonder, or experiencing the roar of the wilderness as its residents come to life, and the lively slither of a river teeming with untamed wildlife. There are moments in our lives that live forever. Moments like experiencing the adrenaline rush of close encounters with nature's thrills. The exquisite indulgence of luxurious treats kissed by the radiance of the African sky. The rhythmic movement of a people in celebration, whose tranquility and peace touch the hearts of those they encounter. There are moments in our lives that live forever. Many of them begin here. Zambia, one destination, a million adventures. Zambia, let's explore.
Government has targeted to have 200,000 HIV-negative men and children circumcised countrywide during the October-December 2016 campaign of the male circumcision exercise. Health Minister Dr. Chitalu Chilufya notes that the end-of-the-year target of 419,097 is achievable with the considered efforts from all stakeholders. In a speech read on his behalf by Acting Lusaka Province Medical Officer Dr. Walijovia Chilambo during the volunteering medical male circumcision catch-up campaign in Lusaka today, Dr. Chilufya says government places great emphasis on the prevention strategies that will contribute to the reduction of HIV cases. Dr. Chilufya further notes that other benefits of male circumcision are the reduction of urinary tract infection in infants, reduction of cancer in men and women, and protected against sexually transmitted diseases. He says the launch of the October-December 2016 voluntary medical male circumcision campaign demonstrates government's continued commitment to the fight against HIV/AIDS.
This year alone, 2016, we have set a target of circumcising 419,000 men and boys. By August 2016, we had circumcised just over 153,000 men, which translates into 36% of the target. There is therefore need for us to increase our activities in order to reach our target for this year in the remaining 3 months. Say now 2 months. In the October-December campaign, we had set a target of circumcising 200,000 men and boys across the country. To this end, 200,000 target has been distributed to all the 10 provinces so that all men and boys, especially in the remotest parts of the country, can be reached with these services.
And speaking earlier, VMMC National Coordinator Dr. James Zulu says if Zambia is to effectively reduce HIV infections, there is need for everyone to actively contribute to the cause by ensuring that the country achieved universal coverage of male circumcision. He has observed that Zambia still has a high HIV/AIDS prevalence rate, though the rate had in recent times significantly dropped. He pointed out that campaigns such as the Voluntary Medical Male Circumcision (VMMC) would help reduce the prevalence rate further. Over 153,000 Zambian males have so far been circumcised, translating into 36% of the target.
The foreskin is more prone to ulceration, and the presence of ulcers increases risk of HIV transmission through disrupted mucosal surface of the ulcer. There is high density of HIV-1 target cells in the penis. That's another thing. And those in the inner foreskin are nearer the epithelial surface due to the lack of keratin, which is the hard part of the skin. Then the other thing is that studies have shown that foreskin and cervical biopsies that are in the inner foreskin is more easily infected with HIV than external foreskin. And hence, we prefer that men get circumcised to get rid of the foreskin, which makes them more prone to acquiring HIV. When done by qualified medical staff, VMMC is a simple and safe procedure with minimal chance of adverse events. From start to finish, most qualified MC providers will take approximately less than an hour. MC is most safe when done under local anesthesia, which we use in the hospitals. And then men, after receiving this service, can go back to work 48 hours later or within 48 hours after the service is provided.
Now, more than 168 million children across the globe are in child laborers, with 85 million children involved in hazardous work despite a declining trend. The details to that story will be coming up after this break.
Hatch your eggs the right way. Order the best and high-quality incubators today. Order today from Power Express, the distributors of Bledge incubators at very discounted prices, like a 96 capacity at only 3,000 kwacha, a 264 capacity at only 5,100 kwacha, a 528 capacity at only 7,200 kwacha, a 880 capacity at only 8,200 kwacha, a 1,056 capacity at only 11,200 kwacha. You can say Christmas came early. This is a gift from Bledge to all poultry farmers this summer brooding period. Bledge incubators, hatch your way.
Hey, brother, there's an endless road to rediscover. Oh, the sky comes falling down. There's nothing in this world I won't do.
More than 168 million children across the globe are child laborers, with 85 million children involved in hazardous work despite a declining trend. International Labour Organization ILO Director for Zambia, Malawi and Mozambique, Alexio Musindo, says child labor has declined by nearly one-third since 2000. Mr. Musindo says sub-Saharan Africa, however, still has the highest incidence of child labor, with 59 million child laborers. Speaking during the launch of the Arise 2015 annual report in Lusaka last evening, Mr. Musindo says it is for this reason that ILO will continue to engage member states to put in place appropriate legal and policy frameworks and ensure that appropriate attention is paid to child laborers in wider policies and programs. He states that the Arise project has demonstrated results that are possible through strategic partnerships.
Bringing it down, sub-Saharan Africa contributes roughly about 59 million children who are child laborers. I don't know how many, if we take the population of Zambia, if we try and multiply it, just to have an indication of how many children are in child labor. So as I know, we do a number of programs to address our areas of work, including child labor, and work with a number of partners. And in Zambia, we've been working with JTI in the tobacco sector, in Kaoma and other regions. And this event, which is followed by the 1.5 training, is something to try and give the message out and for you to all go as ambassadors of ambassadors work against the children working in tobacco, at home, and elsewhere.
And speaking at the same event, Ministry of Labour and Social Security Permanent Secretary Barnabas Mulenga attributed the increase in child labour to high poverty levels and the culture aspects that children are a source of wealth. Mr. Mulenga cited the agriculture, tobacco industry, small-scale mining and construction as aspect sectors where child labour is common. He adds that more than 86% of jobs created are found in the informal sector, where most children are employed in precarious activities.
Therefore, as a government, we have made important legal and political commitments in combating child labour. The government has continued to partner with stakeholders on numerous projects combating child labour and continues to undertake initiatives to strengthen the capacity of stakeholder institutions in the implementation of the national policy and legal frameworks. District child labour committees have been constituted, but due to financial constraints, have not been able to reach the desired levels of implementation. Ladies and gentlemen, the Arise program was officially launched in Zambia in 2013 through the support from the Japan Tobacco International in partnership with the ILO and the Windrock International, with the aim to ending child labor in tobacco growing communities. Currently, in its second phase, running from 2015 to 2018, Arise directly contributes to the implementation of the National Child Labor Policy and the Zambia Decent Work Country Program through its focus on 3 areas. One is social transformation, the second area is economic empowerment, and the third area is support to the regulatory framework. Specifically being implemented in Kaoma and Kiema districts of Western Province. Arise has so far supported 5,922 children with education, skills training, and life skills support, and has reached 7,183 farmers. The Arise program has educated 11,570 community members and children on child labor. This program has improved income for 797 households and integrated child labor into existing plans. Therefore, the Arise program continues to inspire and show that through a dedicated team of various stakeholders and departments, it can assist to realize the aim to eliminate the worst forms of child labor in our country. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to invite other potential partners who are interested in working with us on this important matter to come forward, and we shall readily incorporate them in the implementation of the child labor policy. You may wish to know that in government we have devised an integrated approach with ministries of community development, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry in charge of youth and traditional affairs, so that we are able to succeed in this battle. It is a multi-sectoral sector, and therefore we need to partner with other ministries and government agencies. Ladies and gentlemen, as I indicated that the occasion is for networking, I want to encourage each one of us to meet at least 5 people that you don't specifically know, especially those you don't work with, and share your interest and passion in the fight against child labor, and get contacts for follow-up on what we can do together so that we're able to achieve our objectives. I wish everyone...
And speaking earlier, Japan Tobacco International General Manager Mike Roach says the RISE program will continue supplementing government's efforts in ensuring that it gets children out of tobacco farming and into school by giving them the chance of an education and allow them to create a better future for themselves.
We are committed to ensuring that all our tobacco growers strive to meet the requirements stipulated in the agricultural labour practices without exception. This year's report shows the impact we have had in eliminating child labour, with an increase in the number of children we have removed off farms and re-enrolled into school from 1,817 in 2014 to 5,322 in 2015. These are children who were engaged in child labour and have been provided with a scholarship that covers their study needs. The attendance of the children is also monitored by our RISE partners to ensure the children stay in school. In addition to this, households with improved economic activities have also increased from 335 in 2014 to 797 in 2015. These are just a few successes of the RISE program in Zambia. Looking at these numbers, I guess the skeptics among you might wonder, with these small numbers, is this program working? The answer to this is yes, albeit at a slow pace, if you consider the fact that an estimated 950,000 children in Zambia are engaged in child labour. And of that, we are
United Nations Resident Coordinator Janet Rogan has observed that while many people have by now heard of the Sustainable Development Goals (SDGs), they probably know very little about the targets that underlie each of the 17 goals. Speaking during the Cycling for SDGs campaign in Lusaka today, Ms. Rogan says the aim by all should be to contribute to achieving all the goals. Ms. Rogan says every country, whether so-called developed or developing, must act on the 17 Sustainable Development Goals.
Here in Zambia, we pay a lot of attention to combating and treating communicable diseases such as HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis and malaria. And SDG 3 has targets for all of those, aiming to end the epidemics of these major communicable diseases by 2030. However, that is not enough. With rising prosperity and changing lifestyles, especially the shift from rural to urban living, we see everywhere in the world a rise in non-communicable diseases. Non-communicable diseases include cardiovascular problems, leading to heart attacks, blood pressure problems, strokes. They include obesity, which puts an excessive burden on all the organs of the body and undermines good health. Diabetes, particularly type 2 diabetes in adults, cancer, and mental health issues. We see disturbing rising trends in all of these areas in Zambia. How often these days do we hear of a young man or woman in their 30s who just dropped from a heart attack or a stroke? So SDG number 3 has targets for those non-communicable diseases as well, aiming to reduce by 1/3 premature mortality from those non-communicable diseases through prevention and treatment and promoting mental health health and well-being.
And speaking at the same event, Zimbabwean ambassador to Zambia, Gertrude Takawira, has observed the need to have collaborative efforts in achieving the SDGs.
A similar launch was carried out in Harare, in Zimbabwe, on the 11th of August 2016. Thus, today, the people of the Republic of Zambia get to witness this innovative idea of linking sport in promoting the SDGs. So I would like to thank you all for coming, and that many of you have received, and you did receive the invitations quite late, but still you made it. You made your way here to be with us. Is indeed a testimony of a deep desire for all of us to see Africa rise through sustainable development. Thanks to the United Nations for coming up with Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. I think the SDGs, I believe, provide us with a focus and a hope that it is possible to realize a better Africa and indeed a better world. I agree with the sequencing of the 17 SDGs, which starts with no to poverty.
This is the news on QTV with Dingindaba, Jonah Bioya. We'll take a final break, after which we're going to give you the rest of the news.
Fish fillet sticker.
It's in the juice. Just juice. Real juice.
Have some Manzi, Manzi Valley, pure and natural, Manzi, Manzi mineral. You can have it anytime, Manzi Valley, anywhere, Manzi Valley, hey, Manzi mineral water.
The Felix Mutati-led MMD faction says it supports the radical economic adjustments government is making towards the recovery of the Zambian economy. Faction National Secretary Rafael Nakachinda says the economic adjustments are all being well made in good faith. Mr. Nakachinda notes that this is notwithstanding the fact that adjustments such as the removal of subsidies on fuel will have a toll on the Zambian people for some time. He has told QTV News that the MMD believes that the dividends of such economic adjustments will be long-lasting than what the people will go through in a shorter period of time. Mr. Nakachinda states that sometimes it is important for government to take bold decisions on behalf of the people. The Zambia Chamber of Small and Medium Business Associations has appealed to government, donors and other stakeholders to support the development of micro and small and medium enterprises. ZCSMBA Board Chairperson William Tsoko says for the associations to stimulate the growth and expansion of micro, small and medium enterprises, they need support from all stakeholders. Mr. Tsoko says he has appealed to the government to look into the various issues affecting SMEs, such as the high interest rates, market constraints, which include unfair competition. He says there is also need to ensure that momentum is gained thus far regarding the MSME policy is not lost. Mr. Tsoko has, however, urged MSMEs to look for opportunities and networks so that they can contribute to the national agenda of job and wealth creation. As we end the news, as we head into international news, let's take a look at the stories that are making headlines. Vice President Nongawina has distanced President Edgar Lungu and the Patriotic Front from the proposal to increase the tenure of office for elected officials. The Small-Scale Farmers Development Agency says the country's agricultural sector is under threat. These are the stories making headlines in international news. Syrian rebels have announced a big offensive aimed at breaking the government siege of rebel-held East Aleppo. A UK-based monitoring group said rebels had fired hundreds of missiles into western Aleppo, killing at least 15 civilians. They are also reported to have targeted Al-Narab military airport to the east. The attacks are so far coming from rebels outside Aleppo, but it is understood that rebels inside the city would join the offensive. About 275,000 people have been besieged in the east by pro-government forces for several months. Syria and its ally Russia have recently intensified strikes on the east. Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte says he has promised God he will clean up his famously vulgar language. Arriving in his home city of Davao after a trip to Japan, Mr. Duterte said God gave him an ultimatum on the plane. He told reporters at the airport that they heard a voice telling him to stop swearing or the plane will crash in mid-air. Mr. Duterte's blunt speaking, often directed at the West, was contributed to his popularity at home. He called President Barack Obama a son of something, called the European Union hypocritical, threatened to leave the UN, and accepted comparisons to Hitler, saying he would gladly kill 3 million drug addicts. All were respondents to criticisms of his bloody war of drugs that has seen thousands of alleged drug dealers and users killed by police and vigilante groups. Like most Filipinos, Mr. Duterte is Roman Catholic, although he has boasted about his womanizing and called the Pope a son of something for causing traffic jams during his visit. That's the end of the news. We will give you more news at exactly 22 hours. My name is Dingindaba Jonah Bioaki, reporting QTV.